Hello and welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. Konstantin here.
And this is Becky.
All right, well, another quiet week.
No big news this week, but we still have a fun-filled podcast / YouTube video in store for you. So don't worry, don't go anywhere. Do not touch those dials.
The show must go on.
It must.
It starts with a roller coaster. Nikon Rumours apparently comes out and says, if Z6 Mark III coming out soon, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, they said, oh, the internet, where everyone's an expert. Multiple websites, forums, and social media accounts are reporting about the upcoming Nikon Z6 Mark III camera. I've not heard about it. This doesn't mean that such a camera doesn't exist on Nikon's roadmap. I'm just saying I've not heard anything reliable about this model. And I've been wrong before. There is also this other small thing. Nikon historically likes to introduce more expensive cameras first, before a cheaper alternative. From a business perspective, this makes complete sense because they can maximize their revenue with a higher priced item before offering the cheaper alternative for the masses. So my guess is Nikon Z8 first, then Z6 Mark III.
The king has spoken. There's nothing to see here. This is the end of the podcast. We're going to go away.
No, but it does make a valid point, as many of you will know from, because I'm sure that a lot of you watch our videos or listen to our podcasts and also other Nikon news sort of, or photography news forums, and probably get quite excited about the prospect of new things coming out. But it does definitely seem to be a little bit of like a, what's the word?
Well, the couch surfer, the couch detective, the,
it's
the
like,
sofa expert.
Yeah, it's like a little bit like people from their sofas have gone, I've decided this is coming next.
That's true.
I was actually flicking through our videos from 12 months ago because I wanted to compare the news that we were going to talk about today and the news we'd been speaking about the last few weeks with what we were talking about a year ago. And there were Z8 headlines a year ago. So just go figure.
Go figure, that's true. But he obviously says from business perspective, this makes complete sense to release Z8 first because you release the higher revenue items and release lower revenue items. We were literally talking about this for last year.
Yeah.
And even if you look at our last podcast, we literally said exactly the same thing. If you apply not what you photographer want, but if you try to put yourself in a position of a business, then it makes sense to release a higher margin product. So put your top technology into the next cheaper camera than the top offering, and then release a cheaper camera and release a cheaper camera. I mean, if you look, for example, a Fuji system.
Yes.
So when the whole XF system, the APS-C system came out, they released X Pro 1 first. Yeah, then they released XT1.
Yeah.
And then they started to release the X10 and, all the other cameras, etc. So, it just does make sense. They all had the same sensor. They all basically had the same autofocus.
Yeah.
And since Z9 is a new generation camera, so we would call it generation 3, I would say, then all those good things should come into cheaper cameras. And all we need is time for them to make those advances less expensive to produce.
Too right.
So that's what it is. And I think it's very, very logical to see. A lot of people didn't understand what I meant that all Nikon future cameras should have autofocus of Z9. I think that the autofocus of Z9 is a new generation of autofocus. So we should have it on all the system. And if we get the cameras with a gimbal autofocus or autofocus from previous generation cameras, people will be unhappy, regardless of what model it is, cheaper or more expensive.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if we were to see another camera now of any description that had anything less than probably the best that Nikon can offer for that bracket, people would generally be upset. And so we don't want people to be upset, but we also all have to be very patient. I'm hoping that whatever we see this year, and bearing in mind that this year is already 3 months into this year, whatever we see this year, it will be worth the wait because we've been talking about it for over 12 months, as I spotted on our videos.
I really, really hope so. Now, Nikon, in preparation to something, has registered more trademarks. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the logo that they registered with the video camera on this. Yes. So now we have 2 new trademarks. So one's called PLENA and another one is NX Ready. So PLENA is a trademark information which includes camera lenses, digital camera lenses, cameras, digital camera. So this patent has been filed on 28th of February.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And NX Ready is application software for configuring shooting conditions of cameras or digital cameras, and the smartwatch application for configuring shooting conditions of the camera. Now, let's speculate. So let's start with PLENA trademark. First of all, it translates to full or complete from Latin, the language of the ancient people.
Of the ancient people.
The ones that are dead.
The Romans. Language of the Romans.
Now, I wrote some notes for you, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me or not, but PLENA starts with PL, and PL mount is a cinema mount. Okay?
I see.
It could be a start. Okay, so this is very hypothetical. Now, I would say, well, why would they produce a cine lenses for PL mount? Maybe it's a whole new dedicated cine camera.
Some severe Da Vinci Code stuff you've done there, like
you never
PL,
know. Exactly.
PLENA, PL mount, Nikon might make some lenses.
Yes, but why not a video camera? We already had a camera logo registered, right?
Yes.
So now it could be, as they say, digital camera lenses, cameras, digital cameras. So, you know, it could be a whole dedicated video camera. People do rave about it. And obviously Sony now and Canon have their dedicated video cameras that will take their own mount lenses. Now, Nikon doesn't have that. We have Z30, so it could be Z3.
Yeah.
It could be something else, but it also could be its own set of cine lenses. I'm not talking that it's going to be PL mount. That's one of the options, but I personally think that it would be Z mount, but dedicated for cine world. And Fuji makes cine lenses for their GFX mount, and they cost a fortune. They cost a lot more than their GF lenses, you see. So who knows, maybe Nikon will do that. NAP show, apparently, is only a couple of weeks away in the United States. It's a National Association of Broadcasters where all those companies, cinematography companies, are there announcing stuff. So I think things are kind of lining up. Nikon is doing something in the shadows. If you've seen what they do in the shadows, that's Nikon to you. But the things are happening in the dark, and my hopes are really high.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad your hopes are high. I have no observations to make about PLENA. It doesn't really mean anything to me, but I like your observations. I like
my enthusiasm.
Your enthusiasm, and the fact that, you know, you've managed to kind of connect some dots to make some form of picture, which may not be a correct picture, but I like it. Now, the other software, the NX Ready thing, is interesting because NX has always referred to their editing software, but in this situation, it's a configuring software. It's configuring shooting conditions, which is the other end of the kind of photography process. So in terms of what Nikon's answer to sort of professional, but not really professional, but free software that you could get, Capture NX and NX2 were actually paid software. And then they had View NX and NX D, which were free, but slightly NXD was more comprehensive. Then they put out NX Studio. So now they've got NX Ready, which the word ready makes me think that this is, okay, so this is before you put the shots into NX Studio. What's it going to do? Is it going to let you configure all your settings in software and then send those over to your computer? I can't right at this very moment think with what it would be. But if you look at NX Tether, for example, that's a remote tethering software. Yeah. So I would have thought that maybe there was some transferring of data or settings at a distance.
Well, if I will continue your thoughts, so if you've got an NX Tether, which is set up for the professional photographers at the live events, where you can control your camera via iPad or some mobile phone, etc., NX Ready could be a next step in a chain. Maybe it's something that puts in all the metadata into the file before it's been passed to the editor. So it could be that, but it also could be that a mobile software that allows you to set up a presets for your camera settings. So think picture controls. But instead of this, we're doing a preset for wildlife photography, maybe landscape photography, portrait photography, macro photography, and its specific aperture settings, let's say, or shutter speed settings. Could be a higher frame rate, could be different focusing modes, you name it. It could be that. And then you just, with a push of a button, you send it straight to the camera wirelessly. And now you have, let's say, user 1, user 2, user 3, but you set it up different ways. So could be that.
Could be. I mean, it could also be something a little bit more basic. It could be a replacement for like set picture controls or something like that. But I quite like the idea of being able to set your settings remotely and then send them over to your camera. Maybe it's kind of consumer version of NX Tether. I think there's a few options there as to what that could be. And it may not come to anything.
Well, since we speculate and obviously no one knows anything, are you more excited about PLENA or NX Ready yourself?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, PLENA doesn't really mean anything to me at this point, although I like the idea of it going hand in hand with the cinematography side of things, but I don't know if that's what it is. So I'm going to say NX Ready.
I'll say PLENA.
I thought you might.
Because if they release a dedicated video camera, that a lot of videographers, and again, it's something that, let's say, we have photographers watching us, but there are a whole bunch of videographers who use Nikon and they don't want to buy another brand to shoot their videos with, So releasing something like this, a dedicated video camera, maybe with a set of lenses, it's a big step forward from Nikon. And, a lot of people were asking us, would they ever release that? And we thought, well, it looks like it may not be the case. But with something like this, it gives us a tiny hope because there's not much information. So, but if they do that, I think it will be excited for a lot of people who are not waiting for Z8, but waiting for something like this.
Waiting for something else. We're all waiting for something. Excellent. Now, there is some Nikon Corporation news.
Remember, they used to buy their own stock. They finally finished the acquisition of them.
Wow.
We'll be updating you every month for about a year. They started last May in 2022, and they finished purchasing their last shares on 24th of March this year. And today they acquired 21,451,000 shares, which is equivalent of about 30 billion yen. So that's how much stock they bought.
Wow.
We're updating you on that.
Lucky you.
You make your own conclusions.
Excellent. And now for some third-party news. So first up, we have Meike, who have announced a new 85 1.8 full-frame autofocus lens for the Nikon Z-mount. This is an autofocus full-frame lens. Just bear that in mind because that's quite important here. It's going to be released at $200. And to be honest, the specs make it look very similar to Nikon's F-mount 85 1.8 G that they had. It is equipped with a stepping motor, which is a key point here, which will bring you the experience of silent and smooth focusing, according to their website. And it also features a micro USB firmware upgrade interface. So you can upgrade the firmware of your lens online, which is helpful when Nikon do firmware updates on their cameras and then your third-party lenses suddenly don't work.
Yeah, the 85mm space and Z-mount is getting quite crowded. So we not only have Nikon 1.8, we also have Viltrox and now Meike lens as well. And obviously the king of them all is 85 1.2, which is now out and shipping all over the world. But at the price, it looks very attractive. It's cheaper than Viltrox. It's USB firmware upgradable, and you need that because with the Z system, with the constant firmware updates for all their cameras, there is an issue with the compatibility sometimes. And in one of the videos of 85 comparison of Matt Irvin, he had some issues with Viltrox lens on it.
Yeah.
So you do really need that, but it's cheaper in price. So you may want to risk or not of getting a lens cheaper, shooting with it now, and hoping that the firmware is not going to break your camera. And obviously, this is another example of third-party manufacturers reverse engineering the autofocus and making autofocus lens available for Z-mount without working with Nikon on that, like let's say Sigma, Tamron, and Voigtlander. Speaking of other third-party autofocus lenses, the Yongnuo 35f2 autofocus full-frame lens is now available for order. So this one's priced about $280. Again, it's a full-frame autofocus, 290 grams. Again, a lot more lenses coming in into Z-mounts. Nikon is not blocking it, which is a very good thing. So all I can say is just welcome to the range.
Welcome to the range. If anyone knows anyone in Yongnuo who'd like to send us a sample of their 35 f2, we'd love to try it out.
And we also have another lens. This one is manual focus, but according to many people, it's quite highly regarded lens. It's Venus Optic releasing Laowa Argus 28mm f1.2. It's rumored to be released this week. It's been on display at CP+. So according to many sources, the price will be about $600. It will weigh about 560 grams, will be available for Nikon Z-mount as well as the other mounts. And it's 13 elements and 7 groups. So 1.2 lens, 28. For some of you who, let's say, don't want to use f-mount lens like 28, 1.4, which is one of those legendary lenses, then you have a native mount available for you with manual focus option.
That's right. I wonder how big that lens is going to be, because it's a 1.2 aperture and it's a wide angle, which is an unusual combination. You can't usually get a small lens.
Yeah, it sounds chunky, but the good news about Laowa lenses, that they're better built than some Chinese manufacturers. They've been around for quite some time. They have representation in UK and United States. There's been so many reviews out. So a lot of people rate them higher than the other offerings. So I expect it to be optically very good.
Nice. In exciting Nikon Owner news, the new issue front cover has been confirmed, and I have a sneak preview of the first proof. I can confirm that this beautiful shot right here by the legendary Joe McNally is going to be the front cover of the new mag. I have actually managed to have a sneak peek of this entire magazine. It is jolly marvelous. So if you're not already a subscriber, you can subscribe using our affiliate link. But also, if you are a subscriber or you decide to sign up, you can access all of the back issues going back some 20 odd years, 25 years worth of issues, I think it is now. Yeah. So you can gain access to all of the previous issues online. Isn't that fantastic?
Okay, so let's go to the kitchen of making a magazine. Yeah, so tell me, like, you've got a proof version right now. How long does it take from here to the actual issue being sent out to the people of the world?
Well, this is after it's gone through several proofs of the electronic version, or, you know, the soft copy version. So this is what the printer produces for us as a pre-go to press issue. So from here, we check it over.
So this is a pre-production model, just like Nikon when people get their lenses first.
Exactly. So from here, from this stage, it then gets the green light to the printers as long as there's no changes that need to be made. And they print it, then they send it to their mailing house. And then from there, it goes out to the general public. Obviously, if you have an electronic subscription and not a printed subscription, and even if you've got a printed subscription, you can get access to the online issue, usually about 3 weeks before the physical printed mag arrives. Sometimes 2 weeks, it varies.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right, and now to the point of discussion. We released a podcast last week and the news came out literally about 10 minutes later, and the news of demise of DPReview. It's been shut down by the Amazon who own DPReview website. It
was a sad day. It shook the photographic community, as DPReview has been around since 1998. And Chris and Jordan have made a vast number of videos for the YouTube community, many of which you've probably seen. Maybe you've even used their videos in order to convince you to buy something or to try out a new technique. So DPReview as it exists now will be sorely missed.
Yeah, so the party ends on 10th of April. Now, for a lot of people, it wasn't just about the content that the website was creating. And one of the things about DPReview is, compared to other photography websites that use clickbait articles in order to get their views, DPReview was always one of those that was highly regarded because they didn't try to do clickbait, and they actually were writing a big, extensive reviews of the equipment and very interesting interviews with people from photography industry, including companies like Nikon, Canon, and Sony. Now, for a lot of people, it was also a huge learning source, especially on the forums, because it brought a lot of photographers. I mean, they've been around from 1998. The forum has been around for so long that it's highly likely that if you were searching something on Google, some photographic question that you had, the DPReview forum link would come up. So for a lot of people, it will be sad to see this vast amount of knowledge being gone. Now, the good news is that actually DPReview website and forum section is being currently archived by the archive team. They announced it on the Reddit. And basically, currently they are working to scrape over 4 million articles and posts within the next 3 weeks. The good news is that those forums are not going to disappear. So they will be available somewhere. And if you'd like to follow the updates on this project, we will include the link below. Now, my question is to the public, is more about Amazon owning them. And the question is, how much is the photography community is worth to you and to a big company like Amazon? Well, according to Amazon, it's worth nothing. We are worth nothing.
Amazon don't care about us.
So this is the question. Obviously, Amazon owns it, and that's just kind of the risk of signing the deal with the devil. You know, company like this being bought by a bigger company, there's a chance of something happening in the future when the big corporation decides to do budget cuts and it doesn't look at people behind it and doesn't look at the community behind the project. So my actually question to the community is, well, is it worth it being this way, where they just close the website? Or do you think it would be better if they would start to monetize it and it would become a Facebook with their Instagram, where we see advertising all the time, where algorithm shows the ads that you're interested in? You were looking at flowers on the internet and suddenly your Instagram has flower advertising. So would you want that? Because if the website like DPReview is not financially viable for the big corporation like Amazon, they would either advertise the hell out of you and the data that you provided to you, as well as the other companies, or they close the website.
Yeah.
It's free because you are the product.
Right.
As simple as that. What do you think?
The good news is that Chris Nichols and Jordan Drake have joined Petapixel and will be leading its YouTube channel. So they are not gone, nor are they forgotten. They are putting out some interesting articles and videos, as well as the rest of the DPReview team, before the 10th of April. But then they'll be transitioning over to Petapixel, which is wonderful news. So we will see more of them on our screens very soon.
It's also wonderful news that according to my very brief search on Google, Petapixel is independent publishing company, so it's not owned by a big corporation.
Huzzah.
Moving on to review section, Christopher Frost is on a roll. He published a review of Nikon Z100-400 lens, and he loves it like all Nikon lenses, really.
That's right. And although Nikon haven't taken the 100-400 off order suspension yet, we actually do have stock of that one now. So it seems like they're coming in a little more frequently.
Well, the question is actually, because it was published on Nikon Japan website, does it affect only Japanese, retailers, or is it for everyone? So that's a good question. But in the past, when the flash guns were discontinued or delayed first, we didn't see them coming. With 100-400, it's opposite, actually. We do get the shipments every now and then. Yeah,
exactly. Now, we also have another review, which is from our YouTube channel. This is on the Feuchtlander 15mm f4.5 new super Helia lens for the Nikon Z-mount. This is a beautiful manual focus native Z lens, and it's pretty cool.
If you're into wide-angle lenses, a lot of people say, it's f4.5 and it's so expensive, but, apparently, according to many people, is the best Sunstar-producing Z-mount lens. How cool is that?
Very much. W.
What's W?
It's like what the kids say now when they're like, they don't say like cool or nice, they say W. It means win. Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
That's sad.
W. Learning all the lingo. No cap. For your weekend read and watch segment, we have How to Use VR on Your Camera, a must-see by Steve Perry.
Yeah, it's called something else, but I just kind of shortened it. So he goes through the VR system of Nikon, Sony, and Canon cameras.
Awesome.
And tell you how to use them the best possible way. Now, let's give some love to DPReview. So they published 2 articles that we'll recommend you to read. I think we're now in the last days of DPReview content. So the first one is called Nikon D3S, long and very long-term shooting experience with Barney Britton at DPReview.
That's right. He said, the news that after 25 years, DPReview would soon be closing its doors forever came as a shock to me, as I'm sure it did to many of the people reading this. And of course, the news prompted me to think back on my 13 years of writing for the site and recall my first proper review. It was of the Nikon D3S, a camera that, as it happens, I still own. So he talks about the fact that he's still got the D3S after all this time, and really, this isn't a 6 months on review.
It's a swan song.
This is a decade in the making review, so worth having a read. We also have going inside Sigma's factory to see how lenses are made by Dale Baskin, also at DPReview.
So just a quick note that Dale Baskin is not related to Carol Baskin.
Thank you for that. During a recent trip to Japan, we had the opportunity to go behind the scenes at Sigma's lens factory in the city of Aizu to answer that question. And we're going to walk you through how it's done step by step. So that is DPReview's tour of the Sigma factory. Yeah.
Let's visit DPReview website for as many times as we can in the last days of its functioning. Let's show it some love and appreciation. It's been a monumental website in a lot of photographers' lives, so let's show it some love and appreciation. It will be missed.
Indeed.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us this week.
Yes, thank you very much for watching and or listening. Please give us a like and a subscribe. If you're on YouTube, give us a follow, a rating, perhaps even a review if you're listening on a podcast platform.
Did you know that we are available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms in high fidelity sound?
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah, good. If you feel like, you're welcome to share our podcast on all social platforms like Facebook groups and Reddits of the world as well.
Yes, and if you'd like to follow us on the internet, then you can find us on Instagram. I'm at Rebecca_Danese. The shop is at Nikon @Grays.
And I'm at Konstantin Kochkin. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.